What up, family? It's your boy Amarú, and we are back with another bite-sized chat. And I am joined this time again by one of my absolute favorite people to talk to. He currently has a prominent role on Disney Plus's new animated show, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. You can see Mr. Mac Gargan, aka the Scorpion, Mr. Jonathan Medina. Jonathan, how are you doing today, sir? Thank you for joining me again.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Excited to be talking to you because this honestly has been one of my favorite shows in recent memory. And you absolutely killed it on this show. I was
Thank you.
so excited to see you there, and I really, really enjoyed this first season.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you so much. That's really nice to hear.
No problem.
Good
And
deal.
you, as I mentioned, you took on the role of one of Spider-Man's most iconic villains in his rogue gallery, the Scorpion. Over the decades, in both comic books, television, movies, he's had a lot of interpretations, a lot of great actors who's taken on that role, from Michael Mando in Homecoming, the great Joaquin Cosio with his unique representation in Into the Spider-Verse. For you, did you take any inspiration from those legendary actors when crafting your spin on Mac?
Uh, yeah, I mean it's hard not to be influenced in some way, shape, or form by all of those who came before, but I I I really came at him from an individual standpoint, not just for myself, but for him as well. You know, you take a lot of his history, having worked with Jay Jonah
Mhm.
and what he did before, like finding people, being a private investigator, growing up in the streets, and I tried to apply a lot of my own life to him to give him a depth and a substance, so that he comes across as a real person, as three-dimensional as you can make an animated character, right?
Of course, of course. And you mentioned like taking experience from your own life. I mean, I know you were born from New York City. Mac is deep within the streets of Harlem, but other places where he's at in New York. How was it to pull from your life experiences in a show in a comic book world where New York City is such an integral character in itself?
It's hard to escape because it's so funny because I'm watching a Rick Burns documentary right now. It's from, God, it's got to be like 15 years old now, about New York, about the origins of New York. It's called New York, a documentary film, and it's got such an incredibly rich history, the city itself, and so much of what happened in New York has gone on to influence the rest of the country in a lot of ways, right? And so you feel the effects of that city in so many ways, shape, and form. And we all do, in ways that we don't even realize, right? So when you're coming into this character, the neighborhood, right? It's the foundation for him. It's the foundation for all of us. So yeah, it was nice being back. It was nice being able to see, the bridges and the cities and the streets, and just like feel it, you smell it, the energy's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, sure. And being a voice role, the what was it like to be in the studio doing the voice recordings? Were you by yourself? Were you allowed to like be in the room with somebody else? Because I you did such a good job making me feel like you were there with the characters that you were playing across from. How was that experience like for you? Because I know you had to probably envision a lot of those bridges, envision a lot of those streets. What was that like for you?
Being able to take myself back to being a kid, pulling from, guys that I grew up with, guys that I knew, throughout my life, from the time I was a little kid till, when I got out of the service, and I got back to the city, and all of that. That's all there. Jeff and Sarah Sherman, who's the casting director, she was in the booth. There were a lot of people there, but Jeff and Sarah were really the main interpreters for me when I was in the booth, and the guides for me as I was going through. But I brought a lot. I brought so much already with me that we were able to play, and I don't think we ever ran over. Like we delved so deeply and so quickly into what we were doing that we were just, there was just so much to work with on their end, and thank God for that. I can tell you, and Jeff will back me up on this. I think they had to buy new headphones every time I was done because I was dripping sweat. Like I would go so all out as Mac in the booth that I would be it was like I ran through a waterfall, and they would be they'd be on the other side of. Thank God they were on the other side of the glass, because they'd be just so affected by everything that I was doing. And Sarah likes to say, the guy who I am, who comes in the booth, I'm like, hey, how you guys doing? And then all of a sudden I'm like, Aranya, like you turn into this character. It's fun, man. It's really fun. And what a great character to portray, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like you could feel that energy come across. It was really, really good to see Scorpion get his due and see how menacing and see how dangerous he really was. Outside of just that full energy, what else did you do in terms of like getting his cadence right, getting his voice right? Because like I had to, I've interviewed you before, so I know the voice. I saw you on Primo and everything, and like I was like, it's Jonathan, right? Like I can hear it, but it doesn't sound like his big boisterous, really happy self. How did you, like I said, how did you get those mannerisms down to make him as big a threat, and in my eyes, maybe even like a bigger threat than the likes of like Doc Ock or Green Goblin?
Yeah, everybody has their thing. There's never any competition or comparison, because Coleman did such an incredible job, and he has such a distinctive voice, and he has such great control over it. And Hughes, you could just tell he was having a ball in there. We're playing Doc Ock, and so it was. And everybody has their own kind of form of menacing, right? There's always the personal stamp and signature and fingerprint of what it means to be intimidating. And so I tried to ground him as much as I possibly could in what it was like to be a guy in the city, right? To be in the streets, to be that kind of a guy, kind of a dude. And so there's this underlying anger and frustration and energy, but there's also a hunger in him to prove himself, and I created some backstory for him that gave me some place to pull from, so that the anger isn't just anger in general. It isn't just amorphous, right? It was very focused. It was very intentional. And him wanting to prove himself was something that manifested in a lot of his interactions with people all around him. And there's a deep well of hunger in him to be more than what he is. And when you couple that with the gamma radiation from the suit, and what that suit represents for him, a lot of his hopes and dreams and desires started to become connected to the suit in the way the suit became connected to his body, right? And so the transition, I've heard a couple of people talk about how he was kind of a normal guy in that first introduction in the street fight, and then he became the psychotic person, and that was intentional, right? It was intentional in the booth. It was intentional in my delivery. It was intentional in their direction, because there is a progression for him, right? Like, we want to see the arc of the character. We want to see him grow. To me, that's the most interesting thing about being an artist or an actor, is to be able to give something an arc, a journey, right? The hero's journey. And Mac is the hero of his story, right?
Right.
It's the reason he fights tooth and nail for everything, because he's fighting for not just his life, he's fighting for his integrity. He's fighting for the things that he believes in, things that he wants, and like we all do every day, I think.
Yeah, you spoke of like bringing a backstory to Mac. Were there any things that you brought like to Jeff and to Sarah that they really were like, oh yes, let's pull from that, and vice versa? Anything that they gave to you that you didn't think of that you really took to heart when going through that arc for Scorpion over the course of the season?
Nothing specific, because the time in the booth is always limited. So it's not like theater, and unfortunately, like, we couldn't have 3 weeks of rehearsal time to really like go over like, well, this is where I think he comes in, and this is what his father was like, because that kind of stuff, it really helps. But that's why as an actor you want to do the work ahead of time, so when you come into the room you're ready to go. And so a lot of the back and forth between us ended up becoming uh more about cadence, more about delivery, more about like intention on a line or on a word, or giving variations on something, right? So a particular interaction between like me and Big D, and what that would look like versus, the way that I would say araña, or the way I would say have a particular threat in mind. And then a lot of the exertions, right? There was a build to that. And so that was mainly the back and forth between us.
Nice. Well, Jeff's writing was spectacular throughout the season. So I again, I heard it in your voice and the way you attacked everything, how knowledgeable you were with it, and how knowledgeable Jeff and Sarah with it as well. Luckily, we hope to. Villains are never gone in Spider-Man, so we hope to see a little bit more from you. And we know I'm very happy that the show's been greenlit for 3 seasons already. Mm-hmm. Are there any comic book runs, any Scorpion storylines that you would love to dig into for Mac in upcoming seasons?
Sure.
Marvel might be somewhere telling you, "Hey, no, nothing there, nothing there." All right, I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. That's great. That's great. Before we get out of here, I did this last time, and then I thought it was a little fun, so I wanted to kind of play this game again. One gotta stay. I'm going to give you 4 options, Spider-Man related, and out of the 4, you got to pick one of these characters and their interpretations across mediums, and the rest are gone forever. So between, and I'm going to leave Scorpion out of there because I did that to you last time. Couldn't let you do your favorite one with the Doctor Who's doctor. So you got Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Kingpin, or Venom. Keep one and all their interpretations, and the rest are gone forever. Who would you have to correct?
Green Goblin.
Green, without hesitation. Yeah. Why Green Goblin?
So much comes out of him, right? Like when his iterations produced the Hobgoblin, and there's a long history between him and Peter, and at a very personal level. And I just think I love the glider, and I love the bombs, and he's got a great laugh, kind of like the Scorpion, So yeah. He's the real one, man. I want to keep him.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear Coleman's interpretation on that laugh. I think that's gonna be great. Almost as good as your interpretation.
How do you know? How do you know? How do you know he's gonna? You don't know that.
That's the greatness of the show.
Out there, we don't know that he's gonna be doing that.
We don't, but that's the greatness of the show, because he's still good right now, and I just can't wait to see what happens with him. I can't wait to see what happens with you, Jonathan. I am so grateful again for you coming and talking to me again. I cannot be more truthful when I say you are one of the nicest, kindest, and most genuine people I've had the honor to talk to while I've been doing this. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Dude, thank you so much. It's so great to see you again, and I hope everybody enjoys the show.